have promised, who have promised to speak will come on in. What we are having this evening is Cornwall's annual town planning meeting. The purpose is to remind everyone in town that in 2020, after much labor and participation by many of Cornwall citizens, a 10-year town of planning, conservation, and development was created. The history of planning and town plans in Cornwall is very interesting. It actually has been something that's happening in this town for over 70 years. The very first planning committee, an informal planning committee, was formed in 1951 and chaired by someone whose name everyone will recognize, Elmer Griggs. In 1953, the town created an ordinance formalizing the creation of a planning commission, and they set about to create their first town plan. For many years, the zoning and planning commissions remained separate bodies, but in 1967, the town passed another ordinance combining them. So what we're here to do is find out what the many unpaid volunteer groups here in town have been doing to help bring the town plan to reality. The fact that so few of the people who actually contribute to this town are on salary says a lot about the kind of town Cornwall is. And I really want to applaud all of you, the volunteers, who give so much of yourselves every day, including the planning and zoning commissioners. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to read the goals aloud. John is going to share that list. And after we're done with that, Karen will call on the people who have promised to speak this evening. Following that, we can have some public comment. I would ask that people who want to ask a question or need an explanation, please submit that through the chat so I can direct the question to the proper speaker afterwards. So John, do you want to go ahead?
I am just going to enable chat.
Oh, okay, thanks.
There's some options. I can have people, everybody can see the chat. Is that?
Just
I
you
can
and
make,
me.
I might be able to make you a co-host, and then let me see if I can do that.
I should have told you about this beforehand. Sorry.
So you are now a co-host, Anna.
Okay.
And hopefully, and I'll set the chat so that participants can chat with the host and co-hosts. So in theory, you and I will see the questions. Okay, I'm going to share now.
Okay, thanks. So there were 4 subcommittees, actually, of the Planning Commission that worked on economic development, housing, natural resources, community, culture, and youth resources. And I'd like to mention that the last town plan was the first time that youth resources was a topic in any of Cornwall's town plans. Let me see. John, are you going to move down to the next slide for me? Because I'm not finding myself able to do it. Can you unmute yourself?
Sorry, Anna, I apologize. I was getting a chat.
Oh.
Same time you were asking me to do something. Could you repeat what you said?
I'm asking you to move the slide down. Okay, I'm not going to be looking at the chat until towards the end, and I want you to notice that there are 2 people in the waiting room. Anyway, under economic development, increase opportunities to allow for new businesses. Make it easier for residents to work from home. This year, the zoning commission was able to pass an amendment to the home business regulation that goes some way to addressing those particular goals. Support Cornwall's existing businesses, improve high-speed internet and cell signal coverage, promote our natural resources to attract visitors and create new business opportunities, develop and promote our arts and culture resources to attract visitors and residents and support Cornwall's many artists, support our agricultural and farm-based businesses, support transportation-related businesses, participate in the regional economic development efforts. Next slide. Under housing, increase the number of affordable housing units by at least 25 over the next 10 years. Increase the number of attainable rental housing units. I would mention in relation to that goal that the other thing the zoning commission managed to accomplish this year was an amendment to our regulations allowing a so-called free second cut under our subdivision regulations for people who are donating land to the Cornwall Housing Corporation for their parcel program. Other goals under housing, consider zoning and permitting changes which would make building homes more affordable, increase first-time homebuyer options, make the housing stock more energy efficient and accessible. Next. Natural resources, protect priority forests, farmlands, wetlands, and wildlife corridors, conserve and protect Cornwall's drinking water and recreational water bodies, including wetlands with related buffers, streams, and the Housatonic River watershed. Monitor and protect air quality, protect Cornwall's horizon lines and ridge lines, address the proliferation of invasive species, limit noise and light pollution, promote sustainability efforts, including sustainable CT participation and implementing further energy conservation measures, obtain scenic designations for Cornwall state roads. And finally, under community, cultural, and youth resources, next slide, John. Attract and retain young people and families, meet the needs of Cornwall's older residents, including transportation, healthcare, and social recreational opportunities. Enhance communication and collaboration between existing town groups, and here we are. Support Cornwall's outstanding volunteer fire department. We train and attract EMS fire volunteers through support and incentives. Enhance recreational opportunities for young adults. Encourage more social service businesses and organizations to locate in Cornwall Plains. Encourage the development of a central community hub to be utilized for civic and social events. Continue strong town support for Cornwall Consolidated School, Cornwall Child Center, Cornwall Library, and other social service organizations. Encourage the preservation of Cornwall's historic barns and other historic buildings. Address pedestrian, car, and bike safety in Cornwall Bridge and West Cornwall. So there are the goals, and Karen is now going to introduce the people who are working towards effecting the changes we need here in Cornwall. Karen, you have to unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Our first speaker, as he has been for all the years we've had this meeting, is First Selectman Gordon Ridgway, representing the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, thank you, Karen. And let's see, going to speak quickly because a lot has been going on, even in the last 2 years, or even since last year. So I'd like to bring people up, and again, thanks people for attending tonight's meeting. I just thought I'd start by saying, listing off the 10 goals the Board of Selectmen passed on December 7th, 2021, as far as where we hope to go in the next 2 years. And you'll see a lot of these things are overlapping with what the town plan calls to do. So I think we're in sync. The first goal, the top goal of the Board of Selectmen is housing, increasing the housing stock and adopting and implementing the housing plan that has been adopted. But also, we're very concerned that actually, as opposed to just a plan, that we actually see more housing be created in a very tight market. Number 2 is healthcare. We're concerned about Sharon Hospital staying a full service hospital. We're concerned about the ever burdened social safety net and the need for increased psychological support services in the area as there's increased stress in the community. Number 3 is the West Cornwall Wastewater plan, which we hope to bring to a vote in the spring. 4 is update the transfer station to increase recycling, do some composting initiatives to reduce the amount of garbage that is shipped out of town and out of state. 5, continue renovations of town buildings to make them more energy efficient. 6, improve internet service. 7, disperse the ARPA funds throughout the community that we've received. 8 is support implementation of the plan of conservation and development. 9 is support volunteer organizations in town, and 10 is to continue to attract new businesses and residents to town. And so I will continue starting on page 5, just as people have the plan there. I think what's really interesting, and I think that in some ways this is the most important page of the plan, because on the plan there is a graph that shows Cornwall's population, which I have taken upon myself to update as it was heading downward in 2020, 2017. We have now seen it go up. So I've just penciled that in myself, because we know that in the 2020 census, Cornwall actually grew percentage-wise by the second greatest amount in Litchfield County, overall 10% growth over where it was in 2010. So it not only made up for the decline in population we saw in the 20-teens, but we saw a net increase over 2010. And I think what's interesting about that is it was done with hardly any increase in the available housing stock. So again, another thing on the bottom of that page is the estimated weekenders, which had been growing. I would say that number for the first time is probably now decreased, as many of these houses became full-time residents from becoming only partially occupied. And again, that is a huge demographic shift that was happening throughout our whole region, but it is played out here significantly. At the same time, where we saw a 10% population growth, according to the 2020 census, we also saw a decline of 24% in the amount of children in town over 2010. So that is significant. And again, we have seen an increase in adults of almost 20%. So the town, even though it is increased in population and we are seeing more young families, the overall trend towards an aging population continues. One other thing, and you can see on the Chronicle Facebook page, there are graphs and all sorts of interesting things that will show you how these demographics play out. But 3 other benchmarks that I will talk about every year that I make a presentation, because I think the numbers are important. If you start looking at, okay, we had an increased population, but did we actually have any affordable housing starts in the last year or 2 years? The answer to that is no, 0. If you look at the amount of first responders we've actually declined the amount of first responders in the town, the ones that are actually responding to calls, by 1/3 in the last 4 years. In the same time, we have seen the school population go up by 25% to over 100 students from 75 in the last 4 years. So again, there are things that are moving around, some in a positive way, but some also show us we have work to do. Turning again to the town plan, in our checklist, the Board of Selectmen has a lot of work, which again um, is in parallel with what some of our goals are. So I will start on page 7 with the economic development thing and tell you all very quickly some of the things that I think we have been working on and we're part of the plan. So on page 7, one of the first thing, and you can see in the lead thing, I will just go down through all the items that the Board of Selectmen is supposed to lead on, and I'll tell you if we have done anything or not. On cleaning up and redeveloping the informal industrial area in River Road South and Cornwall Bridge, I have talked to several people that are interested in properties in that area. However, nothing has come to date. But there is interest as Cornwall grows, expands, becomes more viable as a commercial area. There is interest in Cornwall Bridge as there is also in West Cornwall. Another big project that's called for in the town plan is support development of the wastewater systems in West Cornwall. We are ready to go with that. And we are just waiting to hear from Congress on the amount of aid we will get to that. We will get for that project. So we are hoping to get a vote on the West Cornwall wastewater system in the spring. Another item is support the development of housing for people who work in Cornwall. We did pass the housing plan that was worked on for over a year last December. So we are now going to work on the implementation of the plan, and there are things for P&Z to do in that plan. Then again, we have encouraged and budgeted money to support efforts for Explore Cornwall on the town website, which does help promote Cornwall to the wider area and people that are interested in here. And I think that part of the reason that we have seen a increased population growth is because the town has put out a welcome mat to people and has promoted itself. And that has taken a lot of work, primarily from the Economic Development Committee. Another thing, a big issue that's just come out is enhanced broadband. We have been working with Optimum, who we've heard since the beginning of the year, which is this month, that they are rolling out cabinets, and Karen and I will be working with them to actually start laying fiber optic cable in Cornwall. The plan is to lay it out to the homes, not just some of the main roads. So that is a very exciting long-term goal. We're in a region that is serviced by a carrier that's going to make that happen. We have not taken any concrete action on another item, which is the hiking biking trail between West Cornwall and Cornwall Bridge, but we have cheered on Trinity Conference Center and their efforts to open that part of town and make a hiking trail there. Again, another thing that we have is encourage recreational businesses in Cornwall, and we are very friendly to people that want to open businesses here, and we have seen an increase in recreational businesses in Cornwall as anticipated and promoted in the town plan. Another thing that we have not acted on, but I think because if you've seen in our goal list, we have a lot on our plate right now, but something I would like to do in the next 2 years is this idea of creating a arts and culture committee. We are going to have a housing committee. So I think it's also a good idea that in some ways our arts and culture, which are a significant part of our economy, are sort of under promoted. And if there are people interested in serving on that committee, I think it would be good to put something like that in place. We are looking at a funding vehicle to direct investments in town towards the housing trust. And again, that's part of the housing plan. And we hope to set that up in the coming year. We are also supporting the Economic Development Committee. And then there is something about greater safety on the train tracks. And again, long time issue. We have been pushing DOT and DEP to take down the dead trees along the railroad track that were killed by herbicide. So that is the economic development section. On housing, again, we have pushed through the housing plan, which I think is crafted locally, and will have some positive impacts. We do have a couple of things that we have put in there as far as getting a housing advocacy committee together, and we're going to start formulating that the next couple months. And then also have a housing coordinator for the town to help people that would like to live here get a foothold in town. And part of the thing we're looking at is setting up a trust for housing and to make it easier for home buyers to get housing in town. Because again, as we know, the price of housing has gone up 20% a year for the last several years. It's in the bubble stage now, and whether that pops or not, as we know, the least expensive house for sale in Cornwall right now is approximately $670,000, which is way more than it used to be only several years ago. Then moving into natural resources, we have not done anything about having a sustainability manager, as our plate is full with other things, but we do see a lot of our actions, especially as far as affecting our waste stream here in town, being entirely environmentally proactive and forward thinking. So the last category I believe we have is community and cultural use resources. We have in there, again, one of the concerns is the high cost of hiring professional EMS providers. That continues to be a huge concern of area towns as the volunteers are increasingly stretched. I believe as of last night, I heard that the Cornwall volume of calls went up 10% last year. And again, there's less people taking the burden of those calls. We are fortunate there are people in town, even people that are new residents that have signed up to take the training courses necessary to do the EMS work. And so we are seeing some new people come in, but again, a lot of the members there are my age or older. So again, we're looking at the impacts of having an increasingly aged community. Two other things we have there under community resources. We are working on doing we did get a steep grant, and we were able to help with the preservation of several barns in town, as I mentioned in the town plan, with funding from the state. And we had a meeting to talk about pedestrian bike safety in Cornwall Bridge, and we hope at some point to get back into that, looking at ways we can update our highways to accommodate other forms of transportation besides just automobiles. And we have worked with the West New England Greenway, which goes through Cornwall and connects the New York metro area with Montreal. And you will see some signs up along Route 7, 125, 128, as that bike trail goes through our town. So I don't know if that's all I had, and hopefully I haven't gone too far over my allotted time, but you can tell we have a lot of things, and I like the ability to tie our actions into what the town plan calls for, and the cooperative nature of committee work in Cornwall is real and effective. So thank you all, and I'll be glad to answer any questions at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Gordon. I don't think I've ever heard you talk so fast.
A lot to say.
Under some pressure, I believe.
Yes.
Karen, who's next, Karen?
Board of Finance, but I do not see Mr. Pryor in attendance.
Yeah, I talked to Joe Pryor, who had a prior engagement, no pun intended, but I did talk to him, and the big thing that the town plan calls for is the Board of Finance to arrange townwide financing for the West Cornwall wastewater program. And he wanted to convey to the audience that the Board of Finance has been supportive, that Joe made a financial presentation about the impact of that on West Cornwall, or on the whole town, at a meeting we had 2 summers ago, and they're ready to go as soon as we get a number from the federal project people. So again, the Board of Finance is knows that project will be a major financial undertaking for the town, but there are ways that with care, we can structure our finances to minimize a possible tax increase. And in fact, because the school gym bond is retiring in 2024, it's likely we can dovetail those projects together and make it for a minimal tax increase. So that's the word from Joe. They met their one obligation under the thing. And again, making sure that the town has resources, funding to do all these projects is really important. And I think the Board of Finance does wrestle with the notion that if we do not have an expanding tax base, if you do not see construction, that's what increases the tax base largely. Then the costs are borne by a finite, fairly small group of people. So they're looking at the tax base of the town is one of their concerns. So that's my fill-in for Joe.
Thank you, Gordon, for taking care of that for me. Appreciate it. Next up, Cornwall Conservation Trust, Katie Frygang, you are representing that, correct?
You need to unmute yourself.
I am. So I didn't know the order, but now I do. So the report from the Cornwall Conservation Trust. As of December 31st, 2021, Cornwall Conservation Trust has the following to report in respect to natural resources, the natural resources section of the Cornwall Plan of Conservation and Development. I'm reading this for Barton Jones, I should say that, but anyway, okay. From the 2020 POCD, there are 2 specific goals that we're addressing. Protect priority forests, farmlands, wetlands, and wildlife corridors, open space, pursue preservation and permanent protection of important open space land. CCT has purchased the following properties for conservation since January 2020, 170 acres along Furnace Brook Road off Route 4, 66 acres on Johnson Road, 22 acres on Valley Road. CCT has signed a purchase agreement for 26 acres on Cornwall Hollow Road that abuts the Evans Reserve and a section of the Mohawk Trail. In 2021, CCT signed an agreement to proceed with a forever wild conservation easement with the Northeast Wilderness Trust over 365 acres of forest owned by CCT on Johnson Road. The second is to another part of that goal is to establish and maintain an open space inventory. CCT has inventory of all properties it owns or holds easements over for conservation. And this has been submitted ahead, so there are copies available of the documents that support this. CCT also produced, with the assistance of HVA, a map of all conserved properties in Cornwall, regardless of the conservation entity owning or holding the easement on such properties. In addition, CCT has written process for evaluating properties for conservation value, and there are copies of that. Another part of that goal is to encourage gifts of land and conservation easements. CCT continues to promote the donation of conservation land and easements and funds to support the purchase of the same. To date, over half of CCT's own properties have been donated to CCT. Second goal is to address the proliferation of invasive species and establish a regional partnership to coordinate early detection and management of invasive species. CCT is a member of the Litchfield Hills Greenprint administered by HVA. They have supported a number of programs concerning Japanese knotweed and oriental bittersweet. In addition, CCT has engaged Bob Gambino to help control both Japanese knotweed and Phragmites on the CCT's Rattlesnake Preserve. We have also public trails maintained by we have 12 public trails maintained by CCT or the Connecticut Forest and Parks. Ballyhack, Hare, Hart Farm, Cathedral Pines, Rattlesnake, Cooley, Trinity, Day, Wells, Evans, Footpope, and Furnace Brook. The Cornwall land area is 46 square miles or 29,000, roughly 500 acres. The Cornwall acres conserved and owned by CCT as a percent of the total of Cornwall is 6%. So that's a lot of data. I'm sorry, but that's what it was.
Katie, thank you very much. We will put that up on the website in its entirety.
Yeah, Bart has a lot of attachments to this document, which I obviously didn't read, but so it's all been submitted.
Yeah, we'll be putting it up on the website. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
And you're not, a sustainable CT is on the bottom of the list, so you've got a couple of minutes to get your breath, okay?
Thank you.
Next is the Cornwall Conservation Commission. I believe that's Pat Mulberry.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. The Cornwall Conservation Commission has been very active this past year. Our primary goals are to describe the natural features of the land and their relationship to our well-being, identify unique places and key natural features of our town that deserve preservation, and educate residents and town officials as to what steps should be taken to maintain our rural character. Specifically, we have devoted our efforts to updating the natural resource inventory, which we will be hopefully pursuing in 2022 with additional funding from the town. At this point, we need professional expertise to assist us in that effort. In addition, we are taking a effort to identify unique and special places in town that are worthy of protection. That was one of the goals of the POCD, and we are developing that as well. One of our prime efforts has been to develop an approach to protecting Cornwall's ridgelines, and Debbie Bennett has been heading up that effort, first with a map that you might see behind my shoulder here, which indicates those zones in town on top of the ridges that are visible from primary roadways and access points in town. We've worked with HVA to create that map, and now we are developing a text that will be presented to P&Z on recommendations for protecting the ridgeline. Deb is also working on the control of invasive species, specifically Japanese knotweed, in collaboration with the Board of Selectmen, inland wetlands, and private citizens and community partners to identify and treat areas of particular concern, such as in West Cornwall, at the Covered Bridge, at the Bend, and Riverside Park on the East Bank. Part of our outreach effort has been to team up with community organizations to sponsor events, presentations, and educational programs. Katie Freigang has been heading this up. And the upcoming year will host a barberry as an invasive species, teaming up with the Garden Club on that one. We have been working with the Conservation Trust on the labeling of unique species along the Wells Nature Trail, and have organized a presentation on the bugs that are infesting our trees. This is in conjunction with the Cornwall Association, and that'll be in March. And also planning to organize a educational seminar or presentation on how to monitor the health of our water bodies, specifically Cream Hill Lake. In addition to all of this, the commission is closely associated with Sustainable CT and the Cream Hill Lake Task Force in cooperating with them in addressing the issues of concern that they present. And we have been actively attempting to fundraise and obtain monies from the town for a lot of these activities, and we will continue to do so in this next upcoming budget process. So we're here, we're active, and looking to contribute to the town.
Thank you, Patrick.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the Cornwall Housing Corporation. I see Maggie Cooley in attendance.
There, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. I wrote my thing down so that I would stay within the limits and so that I wouldn't lose my thought. So I'm sorry if it sounds sort of robotic. So good news and bad news, and I will begin with the good. So theoretically, at least, affordable housing got a boost from the last state legislative session's Public Act 2921, whose language concerning zoning regulations upped the ante by moving from asking that they encourage affordability to requiring that they provide for the development of housing opportunities for all residents of the municipality and the planning region, which is a pretty tall order. And this new law includes several darlings of affordability advocates, such as multifamily housing and the creation of accessory apartments by right rather than through the special permit process. And we feel that these provisions make it more likely that Cornwall can continue to develop a range of housing to match the range of people seeking it. And here's why. Streamlining and easing requirements for accessory apartments and permitting the development of multifamily units by other than municipalities and nonprofits is a good thing for Cornwall. It's probable that the results will be more places in town within the reach of those currently frozen out. Our stock of large, many-bedroomed houses lend themselves well to either accessory apartments or the conversion to dwellings for the benefit of more than one family unit. Whether or not these will count as affordable housing units at the state level seems less important to us than the fact that they will provide attainable shelter for more people. So that's the good news. Here's the bad. It is encouraging that the future looks so hopeful, as the past year has not brought us much further along towards achieving the goals set in the 2020 town plan. Those already housed in Cougarman Village, Bonnie Brook, and on parcel program lots continue to thrive, but those looking to rent or to build on our 4 open lots are stymied either by the lack of rentals or the insanely ratcheted up cost of construction. The Housing Corp is trying out new ways to take advantage of new conditions and to make it possible, particularly for those already on our list, to reach their goals. As in the past, we hope to work closely with the Planning and Zoning Commission in the development of regulations that fit the new land use mandates while offering solutions peculiar to our own local needs, expectations, and general culture. So not much positive extra houses to tell you about, but we're working on it.
Thank you, Maggie.
Okay.
Next, we have the Cornwall Economic Development Commission, and I see Janet Carlson in attendance.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Here I am.
Okay.
All right. So lucky for you fine people, I have a visual presentation. That's you can thank my advertising background for that. John, I'm going to ask you to drive if you're cool with that. I'm going to go to the next slide, please. Okay, so it was a pretty huge year. I mean, even though COVID was happening, there was a lot of stuff happening. So that's the list of the current members. We have, as of this year, 6 new members, which is really exciting, and it's an amazingly strong board. We kind of have everybody we need to have on board now to really move the peanut forward. So 6 new members. We have a new chair. I was on this board for 10 years. I was chair for 8 years. So as you might imagine, it was very difficult to hand the baby over to somebody, but Simon Hewitt is now the new chair and is going to do amazing. So I was in the meeting for the first time as not chair in a decade. And it was great. I'm super excited about it. So I am now the Board of Selectmen rep to this group. I do want to acknowledge Dee Solomon and Neil Fraunglass, who have contributed unbelievably to the success of the EDC as guest members. So I wanted to acknowledge them both. And I'm going to point out some other stuff that Neil's doing in a little bit. John, can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so we drew our goals from the POCD, as we were expected to. So it was continue to support the Explore Cornwall site and campaign, develop and carry out buy and hire local, support Northwest Connect, encourage development of year-round farmers market, and develop a community hub. So let's go see how we did. Okay, so this is the new site. We had morphed from the Explore Cornwall site to now the Consider Cornwall campaign. We made that kind of our centerpiece as we were moving into into COVID, because we did want people to consider Cornwall to move here, consider Cornwall to bring your business. We worked very hand in hand with Rocco Botto and the Cornwall website committee, who did an amazing job. So I want to thank them for all the work they did on that. But this is the revamped EDC site that's now part of the town site. So you can go and take a look at that if you'd like. Next slide, Jonathan, please. Okay, so as a piece of this, we continued the Explore Cornwall campaign. So that was done through Instagram and Facebook. The rock star of this has been Neil Fraunglass. For those of you who don't know Neil, he is a chief marketing officer for the city of Philadelphia. And he is, to say he's a rock star is a ridiculous way to refer to him, because he's way beyond that. But we have had the expertise to really bring our social media up to par, and it's getting a ton of attention. I mean, some of our posts are getting over 1,000 views, which is bananas. So we're really reaching down into New York, up into Massachusetts, over into New York state, to get more people's eyeballs on Cornwall, and it's showing. Next, please, Jonathan. Okay, so the year-round farmers market, we call the local, that gave back $100,000 to our community in 1 year. We served 625 unique customers also in this time. So if you haven't been to the local, my goodness, what are you waiting for? I believe we have over, I think it's 48 vendors now. So a lot of people are making money. The feedback that we're getting is that the vendors are happy, the customers are happy. Libby Mitchell has been the executive director of this program. This was done in conjunction. The EDC partnered with the West Cornwall Public Library, an amazing partnership. We were the beneficiaries of grants, and we're super lucky to have had them. So this was a wonderful thing that can only grow more. Next, please. Free Wi-Fi was one of the things we wanted to make available as we were kind of supporting Northwest Connect. I can give you more updates on that in just a minute. But free Wi-Fi was one of the things we really wanted to accomplish, because we had more and more tourists around. People who were working in the different buildings really needed access to Wi-Fi. So Cornwall free Wi-Fi is now available in West Cornwall as of August 2021. The next zone will be in Cornwall Village. We're targeting early 2022. And then the third one will be in Cornwall Bridge, also in 2022. So those are all efforts that are underway, and so far so good. A lot of people have been using the free Wi-Fi and doing so successfully. It's a great thing to be able to offer. Next, please. Okay, so the other one that we had undertaken to accomplish was the community hub, or a community gathering space. So the union was launched, and even though COVID happened, there were 122 unique reservations booked in 2021. So it was closed for a good chunk of that time, but clearly we're getting plenty of action in there. So we hosted everything. Again, this was a partnership between the West Cornwall Library and the Economic Development Commission, a very successful one. Again, grants were gotten. The library executive director, Libby Mitchell, was very, very involved with this and did a fantastic job. Dean Sicardi did the website and did a fantastic job on that. We hosted everything from Dungeons and Dragons to band camps to jazz jam sessions, to people doing virtual learning, to Richard Schlesinger doing his show like from the union. So there's a lot of action happening, all different kinds. Next, please. The Eat, Shop, Hire Local campaign was launched post Thanksgiving. So in this, we had web pages that were within the Cornwall town site. We did flyers, we did stickers, we had a social media campaign, and we did radio spots. And that was starring the aforementioned Richard Schlesinger, who did an amazing job. 3 different radio spots were done, and this campaign is going to continue into 2022. Next, please. The 12 Days of Christmas, I think most people got around to see this. This was a fantastic exhibit. Bianca Griggs and Bill McLean were really the driving forces behind this, really partnered up to get this thing going. Lori Bevins was also very influential in getting this done. So there were 12 different windows featuring 12 different artists. There was all kinds of things that happened with this. We launched a landing page, a social media campaign, radio spots. Again, Richard Schlesinger was our star for those, and flyers and press releases. So, I mean, since we were kind of in the midst, my family was, our building is right down here. We got to see all kinds of people walking around. We talked to people from Hartford, from Torrington, from Thomaston, from down in Manhattan, from Millerton, Pine Plains, some from Massachusetts. So there are people from all over the place that came to see the windows. And this is an immensely popular exhibit, and it was just a heck of a lot of fun. It was great to see the town lit up, and we really appreciated how much enthusiasm there was from Cornwallians too. Next, please. So I as the now chair ex officio, I can tell you with a ton of pride that our goals were achieved, and my goodness, then some. If you look around, more and more businesses are coming to town. And I think all of us are eagerly anticipating having the new restaurant in town, but there's just a lot of buzz going on. And I can promise you that you have an incredibly strong EDC moving forward. And all we're looking forward is for more and more things to happen in town. And thank you for being so supportive of the EDC. There's a couple more people I want to acknowledge really quickly. Richard Griggs has tirelessly videoed our stuff. Looking forward to partnering into the future so that we can provide more videos and more streaming information out to more Cornwall folks and folks who are interested in seeing those. Rocco Botto, as I had mentioned, really key person in getting these web pages done. Neil Fraunglass, who I'd mentioned, who had really helped with the social media campaign, and Rocco Botto, who worked so hard. Did I mention Rocco? I'm going to mention it again because he did so much work on the web pages. And last but certainly not least, Jonathan Berry for helping make sure that these meetings got hosted and taken care of appropriately, and for taking care of my slides, Jonathan, much appreciated. That's it.
Thank you, Janet.
My pleasure.
Moving on, the Housatonic River Commission. Mr. Hart.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I'll give you some old and some new. Bill Tingley is our chairman. He's from Sharon. I think you know that the River Commission represents 7 towns. That would be Region 1, 6 towns, and New Milford. There actually is one town along the river, which is between Kent and New Milford, I believe. It's Sherman. Years ago, they decided they didn't want to be part of the River Commission, and they aren't. It's 41 miles from North Canaan to the Boardman Bridge, and that's our section of the river. I am the senior representative to the Housatonic River Commission, represent Cornwall. Barton Jones is the junior member. I always kid him about that, which is very nice. And each town pays $350 to belong. And we also work through COG, which administers some of the things for us, which is very nice. Continuing with the old, we continue to have a coordinating council, which consists of members reporting periodically to the River Commission, and that would be the HVA, Northwest Hills COG, National Park Service, and Connecticut Deep, and Mike Humphreys, who's in charge of the Fisheries Division, and also First Light Power. And all those people show up and make reports to us, and that was a very important step in proceeding with what we call the wild and scenic. Also, Part of the old would be the things which occur on our agenda. Virtually every agenda involves PCBs, sort of an endless process. The railroads with the associated problems, I think you know what those are with the spraying and so on. Access has been a big issue because we have had many more people who seek to use the resource. And we really have not had in the past the kind of monitoring we need to make this work out. We've actually had issues in Kent in particular, and also in the Milford, of having to close some of the access points. We also deal regularly with misuse of the river, crowd control, river pollution. We deal with many things which are from our management plan, which has all to do with development in the river corridor. And then last of the old, which I plan to just mention about, was the wild and scenic. I'll go to some of the new things. One of the newest things in regard to wild and scenic is this, and I will read this to you. The original plan for wild and scenic recognition as part of the country's wild and scenic river system, which, by the way, in Connecticut also already includes the Farmington River. The original plan was to seek federal recognition of this stretch of the river through the process of state recognition. We'd simply go to the state, and then they would review what we had done as a study concerning the eligibility of the river to be included in the national system. And that's under the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act of 1968. The process was begun under the last presidential administration. It came to the attention of the HRC that significant federal funding would be made available if this stretch of the river would be recognized as wild and scenic through congressional action, rather than the state process that attracts no federal funds for the river. And I think that there have been times when we have felt that we could have benefited from more funding. And that will actually happen if we're successful in getting our wild and scenic status. And because we're going through the congressional route, we now have Senator Murphy and Blumenthal and Representative Hayes, who are familiar with this, and our representative from Deep has met with them, and they're in the process of deciding at what point this would move for congressional action. And at some point in the near future, we hope to complete this so that we will be the Housatonic group be part of the wild and scenic system. It's been a long goal. Also, other things which are new, not for Cornwall, but North Canaan has never had any direct river access, which is rather interesting. And the state decided to purchase the old Legion Hall building, which is west of North Canaan on Route 44. And they're in the process of deciding what to do with the site, which includes a building, and I believe it's 2 acres of land. It might include swimming or it might not, but there definitely would be a place for boat launching, probably picnicking and so on and so on, but it would be an access point to the river. We also are concerned about invasives, and I think that Tom Zetterstrom has probably talked to virtually everybody in the 6-town area about trying to control knotweed and so on and so on. Most of you have met Tom. So the biggest new thing for us is the change to congressional approval for wild and scenic. And that's about where we stand. We've been concerned about the railroad for years and years and years, and haven't felt we've had a lot of cooperation on that end. We're also very concerned about pollution in the river. We're concerned about misuse. We had an incident in Gaylordsville where people actually were dumping stones in along the river shore in order to protect the septic systems in a development. And the Army Corps got involved with that, as a bunch of other people. It turns out that we had looked at the development along the river for that particular subdivision and had recommended to the Planning and Zoning that they not permit it because of the possible pollution. And so that's presently being addressed. But we look at all new development applications which come to us, and we then we simply make a recommendation, which sometimes are looked at favorably by Planning and Zoning Commission, and sometimes not. It's not simply bypasses. And I think that's what I have to report. We do meet once a month. We've been on Zoom. Our ordinary meeting places at Cornwall Consolidated School. We occasionally have the public. We occasionally have press. But in general, what we have is we have representatives from 7 towns that come and conduct the business of the River Commission. Thank you. That's what I have to offer you.
Thank you, Phil. That's great news. And as a proud member of the Farmington River Wild and Scenic community, I keep praying and hoping that you get your designation soon. You know, I'm in full support of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cornwall Energy Task Force is Katie, but if you want to hold that to your sustainable talk, I'll leave that up to you. Katie Frygang.
That the Energy Task Force was taken up by Sustainable CT. And
Okay.
so that's how that goes. It isn't 2 entities now.
Okay, all right. Well, it was listed in the partners, so I'm glad that you told me that. Next is Housatonic Valley Association. I do not see Mike Jastrzemski in attendance. Hopefully he will get me something written that we can get up on the website after this meeting, because I know he has some things to address. I'm going to represent the next, which is Cornwall, the Cornwall Inland Wetlands Agency. There was in the town plan, we were charged with addressing the floodplain regulations. Actually, when the Wetlands Commission is charged with that, that probably means that my name is on it more than anybody else's name. But in speaking for the Cornwall Inland Wetlands Agency, this year we are going to start to look at our regulations again. We have some regulations that need to be amended from 2011, which would address easier permitting for fire protection. So we're going to be addressing working to make sure that fire ponds, fire protection is readily available and permitted through the Inland Wetlands Agency, which speaks to health, safety, and welfare, which is the backbone of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So, and the other thing, we are interfacing with the invasive efforts of Tom Zetterstrom, and we have our own representative on the Cornwall Inland Wetlands Agency. Is called Debbie Bennett, who is our very able representative that gets permission to even go into the town sandbank and make sure that nothing goes out with any Japanese knotweed seeds in it. She's a force to be reckoned with, and she reports to the Board of Selectmen on her efforts, and we're greatly appreciative of her efforts and on the agency. I know that I am. Moving on, Planning and Zoning Commission, Anna already addressed that. Then I'm back up for the Northwest Conservation District. As many people are aware, I work for the Conservation District. We were charged with addressing LID regulations similar to the Morris manual that we worked with the COG to prepare. It's also listed in the Sustainable CT website as the Planning and Zoning Commission moves forward in the regulatory process and starts to update zoning regulations in terms of site plan. We already have a fair amount of LID language in the zoning regulations. There will be room for more when that section of the regulation upgrade comes to fruition in the next couple years. We're being hopeful. So that is my report for the agencies that I can speak for. There's no one here in attendance from the Northwest Hills COG. I think many of you are aware that there's been a change from Rick Lynn to Mr. Phillips, and in the town plan of conservation development, there's a lot of references made to what the COG is doing, and there has been a change. Jocelyn has left the COG. We now have Janelle Mullen. So a lot of that whole the roles of how the COG interfaces with implementing the town plan is changing now that Janelle is our planner for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that is what I will simply add for that. And let me see. Oops, I just lost my place. I got
Torrington
it.
Area Health District.
Torrington Area Health District, there's no report from Kathy Weber. They continue to work on regulatory changes for septic systems, but she is underwater trying to keep up with everything that is going on. And after that, Anna, we are to
Sustainable
the
CT.
Sustainable CT. So Katie, you're back up.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Sustainable CT is a state program that outlines sustainable actions to build local economies, support equity, and respect the finite capacity of the environment, offering technical assistance and funding, and recognizing and certifying municipalities for their achievements. The actions cover sectors such as equity, economy, land and natural resources, creative culture, planning, transportation, energy, that's where energy went, communication and education, material waste management, housing, and others. It was founded by members of DEEP and is supported by 3 major Connecticut foundations and the Connecticut Council of Municipalities. The program was created by over 200 of Connecticut's municipal leaders representing government, nonprofit, businesses, and academia from all of Connecticut's 169 cities and towns. The program adopted a voluntary certification where municipalities could choose actions, implement them, and earn points towards awards. We are currently at the bronze level. Of those 169 towns, 128 towns are registered and 64 have either the bronze or silver level awards, representing over 2,500 actions across the state. Cornwall uses the program as a model of best practices and to glean ideas and possibly get funding and to model great ideas for other towns. Were we to follow the certification process, our next step would be to get a silver for 400 points. Challenges to that are that the program assumes more town staffing that we have, is geared to a larger populace, and it often doesn't recognize nonprofits as viable agents for actions, which is antithetical to the nature of our town. Reviewing the current program, added certification is totally out of our reach. It doesn't work for us. And it's not a failure because the vision, creativity, and resources and funding still do serve us. Connecticut, the Sustainable CT participation is listed, it's mandated in the state and the COG POCDs. So we still are going to be working with it. Our POCD goals and SCT actions overlap in 14 areas, which I have submitted, and I encourage town committees to review for added resources. I have those lists and I can make those available to you if you email me or if you ask Karen, she has that. I've also constructed lists that highlight sustainable actions that we are doing that are not listed in the program. And I'll be submitting these in the hopes that the Sustainable CT people will come to understand the needs and capabilities of a small town. This kind of dialogue is essential for developing the program and a sustainable culture. For instance, in our POCD, we have a call to enhance communication and collaboration between existing town groups, as well as to promote sustainable efforts. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I implore the town to act on these goals and to install a staff member to enact communication, coordination, and future coordination with Sustainable CT. The savings we enjoy in our energy savings can help fund such a position. So that's my real emphasis is on that particular item in the POCD. I think if I have a few more minutes, I'm going to tell you what the 14 other overlapping actions are where they provide resources, funding and such. I would really appreciate some coordination with our different committees. For instance, under the economic development, increasing opportunities to allow for new businesses. Sustainable CT has a whole section on resources for supporting local businesses. Goal 2 here, make it easier for residents to work from home. Oh no, support Cornwall's existing businesses. Sustainable CC has a promote sustainable workforce development. So they have a whole workforce development section. They have guidelines for creating a natural resource inventory, which is something we've already discussed in the POCD. They have resources for supporting arts and creative culture. And I think Gordon was talking about an arts and culture committee, which is part of their program. Support our agriculture and farm-based businesses. They have a section on encouraging healthy, sustainable food networks. Support transportation and related businesses. They have mobility strategies. That has a lot of biking in it, that one. So under housing, they have a section on growing sustainable and affordable housing. Under natural resources, they have sections on developing open space plans, providing watershed education, and creating watershed management. Under community and culture, community, cultural, and youth resources, they have sections on providing effective community communication, which I just mentioned, as well as implementing a complete streets program, which we started in Cornwall Bridge, but did not finish. So those are smack dab parallel actions. Meanwhile, there are other things, which I'm going to be developing this list of things we did that are not things that we did that are very sustainable CT, but not necessarily in our POCD. And also things that are in the POCD, but not in sustainable CT, which I'm going to be submitting to them. See, it gets very confusing. It's just, it doesn't fit us. It doesn't fit us. And they need, but this state is 75% towns under 20,000. So that the program really needs to have much more consideration of small towns. So that's my current battle. And with these 14 points, I think we can stay on track and follow it the way they want us to follow it. But in the meantime, I think I've got about 30 others that they should be acknowledging. So this is sort of my battle. Anyway, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, well, we are done in 1 hour and 15 minutes. I am going to open for public comment now. If you could show your face and raise your hand. Anybody who wants to say anything. Maggie Cooley, is that your hand up?
That was my hand. I just wanted to ask Karen, she used a phrase that I didn't understand what it meant in talking about the conservation district. LID, was that LID? I can't remember what initials you used.
It's LID is low impact development or low impact sustainable development. It's some stormwater management and yeah, that's what it is.
Thanks.
Yes.
Any other comments? I'll make one. I'm just stunned by the amount of energy and work that has been discussed here tonight. And Cornwall is an amazing town. I hope you all realize that. Anybody else? I can't find any questions in chat unless John saw some. No, so no questions. So very good. We'll let everybody retire and see you all again next year. Thanks very, very much for coming.
Thank you, Anna, for all of your work.
Mm.